Well, good morning. People in general are very predictable. Probably those of you who spent a lot of time with your own families, you know exactly how certain members of the family will react to certain things, their gestures, the way they talk, the way they act. You know that something is coming, something is off in this person, something is exciting in this person. You just know, because in general, people are very predictable. I'll give you an example of something like this. Remember that back in 2019, Father Steve got really sick. And so he was in the hospital for 17 days. That's a long time. Thank God it was pre-COVID, because I was able to be with him every day. So one of the first things that I needed to do was to communicate with his family, whom I have never met before. And Father Steve, at that particular moment, he was in no capacity to communicate because he was in a very serious health condition. So I remember talking to his brother Glenn for first time on the phone. So I've never talked to him before, never seen him before, but I picked up the phone, he answered, and he starts talking. And I start laughing. And Glenn is like, "Why are you laughing?" "Well, because you sound exactly like Father Steve. So I don't know how your face is, but just the pitch of your voice, the inflection of your words, you sound just like Father Steve." Now, to make things even more interesting, a few days later, his sister Yvonne came. And you probably have met Yvonne before. Now, if you've seen Yvonne right next to Father Steve, you kind of have to have name tags with the two of them because they look so much alike. I mean, it's exactly Father Steve, spitting image, female. So it's just hilarious to see that. You know, they act exactly the same way, the pitch of voice, the way they move their hands, it's very predictable. So if it acts like a filion, moves like a filion, has gestures like a filion, has the same voice inflection like a filion, most likely is a filion, you know. So people are very, very predictable in this sense. We can predict people's speech, mannerisms, hand gestures, tone of voice, habits. And this is exactly what happened to the two disciples when they met the Lord as he walked along with them on the road to Emmaus. If he talks like Jesus, if he acts like Jesus, if he has the same motions as Jesus, and breaks the bread like Jesus, most likely is Jesus. At first, they were unaware that it was him until he broke bread with them. That's when their eyes were opened, and suddenly everything made sense. It's him. It's Jesus. Of course, we have to realize that they just attended the funerals of Jesus 3 days before. Or at least they were aware of such funerals had taken place in Jerusalem. And now, these days, these two disciples were returning home after the funerals, away from Jerusalem. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been to a funeral? When you go to the funeral home and you have the body right there, you pay your last respects, and then 3 days later, you are walking your dog at the rail trail, and that same person that you saw in the casket suddenly starts walking along with you and conversing with you. Has that ever happened to you before? So we should not judge the two disciples for not recognizing Jesus right away. It's not normal to chat with someone whose obituary you read in the paper just 3 days before. But it was him, because he rose from the dead. Truly, the Lord had appeared to them and walked with them and talked to them and broke bread with them. That's why they had to run to tell the other disciples how he made himself manifest to them in the breaking of the bread. They say that at that moment their eyes were opened and their hearts were burning. This is how the Gospel of Luke tells us about the event. Just picture in your mind and in your heart the warmth that they experienced in their heart, because their hearts were burning, they say. They knew that they were in the presence of someone holy, pure, honest, sincere. When you walk along with someone like that, there is warmth in your heart. You are at peace. You know that you are in holy ground. You are comfortable because you are in the presence of someone who lives the divine life. But in English, we also have another expression, something that we call the heartburn. How many of you take heartburn medication? Right? A heartburn is not comfortable. It's different than the warmth of the heart. There is this acid reflux that bothers you, especially when you eat something you're not supposed to. It's something that bothers your digestion. You just don't feel right, and it's just there, and you can knock it off. When Jesus walked along with these two sorrowful disciples, he is both comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. The presence of Jesus generates both a warmth of heart and a heartburn. Have you ever thought about that? Think about how you will approach the Eucharist today. For example, think about the first time you were able to receive the Eucharist again after the lockdown. Remember that? Because after a while, spiritual communion gets old, right? And you were just longing to receive the Lord sacramentally. Think about the warmth of your heart on that first time when we have to sit together 6 feet apart from each other, and Father Jose was the social distancing police, and I had my ruler to make sure that everybody was away from each other because we wanted to keep the church open. Just think about that moment when you receive communion after that long period of time. The warmth in your heart. But also, as we receive communion, at the same time that communion comforts us, the Eucharist also convicts us. It convicts us to turn away from sin. The Eucharist should bother us, should challenge us to be better people in the world, to be a seat of justice, to be a voice to the voiceless. The Eucharist, like a heartburn, should also afflict us in our comforts. Right now, we are in the process of Eucharistic revival throughout the United States. 70% of Catholics don't come to Mass. You don't have to guess that. Just look around. Why 70% of Catholics don't come to Mass? Because the Eucharist does not warm their heart anymore. And it doesn't give them heartburn either. You know what is the secret to become a fallen away Catholic? A heart that stops from feeling anything regarding the Eucharist. Don't let that happen to you, ever. Like the two disciples on the road to Emmaus, the Eucharist comforts you. But it should also discomfort you and me. Feel the warmth in your heart today as you receive the Lord sacramentally. And also feel the heartburn of discomfort that the Eucharist generates in you as it challenges you into holiness and me. And say to Jesus, just like those two disciples said to him, "Stay with us, Lord." Yes, Lord, stay with us and break bread with us. Amen.